we're blessed to have a gentleman that's had over 4 decades of written excellence, earning him many awards for his work. He's a regular writer and contributor for SportsNOLA.com, also writes for USA Today. He's one of our co-hosts of SportsNOLA TV Monday nights at 6 p.m. on WHNO Channel 20. Here to talk about the New Orleans Saints, please give a warm welcome to Brian Allee-Walsh. Brian?
Thank you, Kenny. To echo these gentlemen's statement, it is always a pleasure to come and address the quarterback club. I wish all of you coaches success this season. Herb, it's always a pleasure to share a dais with you. Good luck to your son. You know, when you look at this time of year, there is nothing more exciting than not only college football, professional football. I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm a huge golf fan. And we got all these wonderful things happening. It makes you appreciate just kind of being a sports fan. When I address this club and I look at the fine coaches that I always share a dais with here, I see Rick Gailey out in the audience all the time. And it reminds me of how blessed this area is to have the great coaches that are leading your kids at one time or another. And we are blessed. There are no better coaches than right here in Southeast Louisiana, in our city. I promise you this. And it's not just these gentlemen, it's the people that they have followed who have taught them well, and they've taken those lessons and they're handing them down to your kids, to my kids. And one day those lessons will be handed down to their children. When you think of the people that have influenced your lives, okay, I can think of a few. There's probably a teacher involved for sure, but I bet you there's a coach. And I bet you that coach, whether it be a female or a male, has had a big time influence in your life. That has taught you great life lessons. And each time I'm here, I'm reminded of that. Kenny reminded me of a time that we first met, and I'm going to tie it all back in here to the opening of the Old Stadium. I think Kenny and I were covering, Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Jesuit and Curtis. It was one of the final games, Jesuit Rumble, one of the final games being played at Old Tulane Stadium before they tore it down. And this is when I ran across him. So that would have been 1979, 35 years ago. And one of the gentlemen, one of the coaches up here, said a great statement, I thought, is that, you know, it's a small world. And every time that you go out and put your foot forward, you're probably making an impression. And hopefully it's one of those impressions that down the road, it's going to come back and be beneficial for you. And I think it's so important that when our kids go out into a community, they remember their last name, who they represent, whether it be a school, their family. And it's always so important. I dabble in coaching. Certainly not in the vein with these gentlemen right here. But I'm a volunteer assistant of Ben Franklin. And I call on some of the great things that I've learned from other coaches, some of the coaches that I've been around when I was covering high school sports, college sports, and now professional sports. And they have taught me so much, okay? And people say the kids have changed. Yeah, they've changed. They've changed because of things around them have changed. But you know what? It still is right here. And if you can find the kid and help motivate those children, those kids through here, you've made something. And I know that if you ask them what their most proudest moments are as coaches, it's the people that they coach. It's the kids that they coach. And it's not so much the touchdowns and those kind of things. It's the life lessons that they'll come back and tell them and thank them years from now. And I thank these guys. I remember the coaches that I played for. And those are the kind of people that I try to help influence the kids that I run across all the time. All right, NFL, the Saints. I know that's what you guys want to hear. My thoughts and prayers are certainly with Boo Williams and his family. And I'm honored just to be filling in for him on short notice. Around the NFL, I'll get back to the Saints, but around the NFL, I certainly think the Saints will be a team that will be playing for the NFC Championship. Who will they be playing against? Out of the NFC, I'll do the 8 playoff teams as I see it. NFC South, I think New Orleans is the only team coming out of the South. Out of the West, Seattle certainly. I think San Francisco's got so many internal problems right now. It's going to be difficult. They're going to be missing 3 important defensive players, and that's their bread and butter actually. Kaepernick's a good quarterback, but the reason for they went as far as they have is because of the defense. Out of the NFC East, I like Philadelphia. Out of the North, I like Green Bay. The 2 wild cards, I think, are either Chicago or Detroit. The Saints play both. And out of the West, it's San Francisco or Arizona, and the Saints play San Francisco at home. Out of the AFC, Indy out of the South, Denver out of the West, New England out of the East, and Cincinnati out of the North. And then my 5th team would be Kansas City. They would be a wild card team. And I'll tell you what, don't go to sleep on Rex Ryan and his Jets. It's a big year for them. I like what they've done in the offseason. And then I think the other team will either come from either Baltimore, Pittsburgh, San Diego. The NFC, that you can see where the division of power has kind of switched over to the NFC. I think the NFC is clearly a better conference again this year, and I think the NFC champion is going, or the Super Bowl champion is going to come out of the NFC again. All right, so where do the Saints fit in all this? Well, I think you'd be remiss if you didn't say that this probably is one of Sean Payton's best rosters. They made some moves here in the last 4 or 5 days that I'm not so sure it strengthened the roster, but I think that their 45, their top 45 is as salty as he's had. They're going to add a kicker here maybe later today. It'll be probably one of the 2 kickers that they've released. They're they're doing some strategy. They're trying to protect another player on the roster. So they'll bring one of those kickers back, and that hopefully will solve one of their problems. But if you look at this roster and what Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton have done over the last 6-7 months, to me it's incredible. They were cap-strapped as bad as any team in the NFL. They've had to rid themselves of debt, dead money, dead weight, and they've had to make some really tough decisions. And you've seen with the number of personnel, veteran personnel that we're all familiar with, they've had to release. Champ Bailey being the latest one. And coaches know this as well as anybody. At the pro level, if you make a mistake, it's best that you cut bait quickly. Don't maximize. Don't elongate your mistake. If you make a personnel mistake and everybody makes them, don't keep paying them. Not that Champ Bailey was going to be that much of a drain on the salary cap, but Champ has had his time. He may still make it back into the league one day. But on this team, he's not going to help. He doesn't play special teams. He's either a nickel, a dime cornerback. And they've got younger, more promising kids that they need to stay on the roster to play special teams and to fill in case of emergencies in the secondary. So I just think you can't say enough good things about what Loomis and Payton have done with their roster. They've done a very difficult thing in that they've really turned over probably in the top 20 players on their roster from a year ago. They've turned over 4 or 5 guys, and they've said goodbye to. And as you've noticed, Roman Harper has resurfaced in Carolina. Will Smith was released by New England. Help me, Kenny. There's other guys. Vilma's not in the league. Yeah, Malcolm Jenkins is in Philadelphia, but Lance Moore's in Pittsburgh. But Malcolm Jenkins, Jarvis Byrd. You tell me who you'd rather have. I know who I'd rather have. And the reason that they went this way is because the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL had something like 15 takeaways last year. And what prevented them, really, seriously, what prevented them from winning the NFC and playing in the Super Bowl probably was their inability to create better field position with takeaways throughout the season. Jarvis Byrd has that pedigree. He's got the ability to he's got great ball skills. He showed it in Buffalo, and he's got that ability. Kenny Vaccaro and him are going to make them a tremendous safety tandem. And I think the Saints' front 7, particularly their front 3, and then their outside push with Junior Gillette. Paris Harrelson is a very serviceable outside linebacker. Curtis Lofton is a good, solid middle linebacker. But their front 4 or 5 guys, if they rotate in, are as good as any. And then we get to number 9. Number 9, it's amazing to me. He's a poster child for reducing this exhibition season to 2 games. All he did was come in and play 26 snaps and look like he's already mid-season form. Now, not everybody's capable of doing that. Drew Brees certainly is, and there's a lot of players that don't need 4 games. Drew Brees is one of those guys. I think he's got another Super Bowl left in him before he calls it quits. Before he calls it quits, he's got 3 years left on a deal. He takes care of himself. The good Lord keeps him healthy, and they keep surrounding him with good players, and they can afford him. You know, who knows how long he can play? I know he wants to play till he's 45. I think that's a pretty far stretch there. If I think he'll be fortunate to play another 3-4 years, to be perfectly honest with you. He's got so many things in his life. As long as he keeps motivated and keeps football as a priority, he'll be able to play as long as he probably wants to. I hope he's able to call his shots and hang it up when he wants to, and not because of an injury or something along those lines. I don't see any reason why the Saints cannot compete for the NFC Championship. Certainly health comes into play, injuries come into play, but if you look at their roster, obviously having Brandon Cooks is a great addition. Jimmy Graham, if he keeps his head in the game and remembers how he got to where he is today, he'll be good. Marcus Colston stays healthy. I'm okay with their offensive line. They're solid from guard to guard to center. I like Jonathan Goodwin at center. I like their running backs. I'm not sure. I think as far as the 3 running backs, it's as good as 3 running backs as there are in the league. Mark Ingram looks like he's coming into play for a contract. I'm a big fan of Pierre Thomas, and I think Kyrie Robinson is a great young prospect. Defensively, we kind of talked about that a little bit. All in all, I mean, there's no reason why this team shouldn't be in the conversation. I see a lot of pundits around the country that are picking them to be in the Final 4 and play for the NFC Championship. And I think the first 4 to 6 games they play on the road. 4 of the first 6 are on the road, and it's important. I think it's important based on what we saw last year. They showed that their game is second to none at home. How well it travels on the road remains to be seen. Last year they struggled, and they did win their first playoff game against Philadelphia on the road. That was important. But this team has a perception of not bringing its game. Its game doesn't travel well on the road. I think that's something that they've got to deal with. And I promise you, Sean Payton knows it. And this was an important issue that they faced during the offseason, and it's being stressed. That's why I think the first 4 games, the first 4 of 6, they play on the road, and they're very important, beginning with Sunday's game in Atlanta. It's important in Atlanta to win because of what Atlanta mindset going in. They have spent a great deal of time and money devoted to trying to get tougher, right? I thought Raphael Bush said it great. He says, you don't just teach toughness. You're either tough or you're not. And I firmly agree with him on that. You can talk about it all you want, but when it comes down to being tough, it has to be inside you. And we'll find out. We'll find out from Atlanta. They've owned Atlanta under Sean Payton. I think they're 13-3 under his regime. Mike Smith has struggled. I think Sean Payton has gotten into Mike Smith's head on occasion. I like them to win by 10 Sunday. And I think this could be the beginning of turning it all around when they go on the road. It's important. It's important for them. If they're going to compete, they're going to play well at home, generally speaking, okay? They may have to go play on the road to get into the Super Bowl. So it's important that you begin that mindset now, that we can win on the road, and that's why this first 6 weeks are important to their chances. But I do like them. I'm probably, them in Seattle certainly. Green Bay, a lot of people like Green Bay. Don't go to sleep in Arizona. There's something about that. I like Bruce Arians, and I like what he's doing there. But I definitely can see, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And I'm not one to to be ingratiate the Saints. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him playing in Phoenix for the Super Bowl championship on February the 6th. Stay healthy, keep number 9 healthy, and you got everything. Yes, sir.
Last year, our prize free agent was Victor Butler, and I know he got a knee injury in the preseason that ended his career. Ended that year. So I was expecting to have him come back and be a really important part of this defense. And so, could just not make it on the field because of injury, and that's why they cut him, or?
Yeah, he just, I thought like you. I thought here was a guy that was a redshirt season last year, and I remember seeing the injury when it occurred. It was a nothing play during OTAs, indoors last year, or a year ago, in May, I think it was. Mark Ingram got a little macho and kind of moved into him big time, tore up his knee, and he really never got healthy here. So, when Rob Ryan brought him here specifically to help their pass rush, and I thought like you, probably like a lot of folks, but he never got healthy. And in this league today, you can't wait too long on players that have shown a history of injuries, or if their contracts suggest that you better get, it's time to play, or we got to get rid of you. And that's unfortunately for Victor, because I think he could have helped this club. They play so much rotational, so much situational defense today that you need 5 or 6 defensive linemen, you need a bunch of linebackers, you need a good secondary, and Victor would have certainly helped from that standpoint.
So is he an option to bring back later if he gets?
I don't think so.
Not even that?
No, he's done here. He's done here. Yes, sir.
What do you think Drew Brees has to do to get league MVP? Would 7,000 yards and no interceptions be enough?
Well, as much as he's got to do it, I think he's got to have the people that he's competing against have lesser years. The Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, Aaron Rodgers. I think in some ways, and I bet you all would agree with me, a lot of times players, they benefit from a larger media, particularly in the East. And even at the NFL level where, there's nothing now that nobody knows anything about. Everybody knows everything there is to know about teams with the internet and everything. But I think a lot of that has to do with it. You guys, we all watch Drew Brees, right? We watch all the Mannings. We watch all the local players we've seen come through high school and college, and then they go on into the pros. So we've seen them, and we know what kind of athlete they are, what kind of player they are. We have a great understanding of Drew. I don't think that we'll see a player like Drew in our lifetimes again. He's special. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. And we are blessed to have him as the Saints quarterback. Just like any team that's got Peyton Manning, any team's got Tom Brady. But Drew is one of those special people, athlete people, better person as he is an athlete. You only come across in your lifetime a few times, and we're blessed to have somebody like him. I think Anthony Davis, if he hangs around, he can be real special for this city. So, I just think Drew's probably going to have another great year. It just depends. And remember, when these votes are taken, they're regular season votes more so. So it really just affects on how you're doing in the regular season. But if Peyton would slow down a little bit, Tom slows down there, those are the guys that generally that he's going to compete with. Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure. Good luck, guys.